Into order. Calling to order the January 18, 2018 meeting of the Radnor Township Zoning Hearing Board. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please consider joining us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There may have been a snafu with the agenda which was distributed. There is one item which is a request for a continuance which may not have shown on the agenda, which was in the back of the room, but which we are going to call first. Appeal number 2904. The applicant Anthony and Gloria Mary, property located at 203 Church Street, request an extension of time for obtaining a permit under Section 280-144 of the Zoning Code for an additional 6 months to August 24, 2018. Please introduce yourself and be sworn in, please.
My name is Anthony Mari.
You do solemnly swear or affirm testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
And spell your name for me.
ANTHONY-MARI.
Mr. Mary, could
Yes.
you provide the board a quick summary of what our circumstances here?
We're not able to build because of the moratorium. I have a buildable lot, but I can't tie into the sewer system, so makes it non-buildable lot right now. So I'm chomping at the bit here to move forward.
Question for the solicitor. Do you have any guidance for the board in terms of what its legal limitations or obligations are in this circumstance?
I think that the applicant faces a situation not of his making where a permit is being withheld by a governmental agency, a third party, and I think in these circumstances, the applicant would be entitled to the extension of time.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have questions of either the solicitor or the applicant? Seeing none, does anyone want to make a motion?
I move that the applicant be granted the 6-month extension that he's requesting.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, it approves 4-0. Hopefully this will work out. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Is there any way that I can get a letter?
I think Kevin will be able to help you with that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Some kind of letter confirming what happened. Sure. All right. Next item, Appeal 3008. The applicant, Rogers Johnson, property located at 340 Conestoga Road and zoned R2, seeks relief from Section 280-20 of the Zoning Code in regard to side yard and aggregate side yard to construct an addition. 28-20 states that for principal buildings, there shall be 2 side yards, which shall be less than 45 feet in aggregate, and neither of which shall be less than 20 feet in width. Proposed 11-foot by 18-foot location of the garage will reduce the side yard aggregate to be 36 feet. The eastern side yard will be reduced from 26 feet to 15 feet, which is below 20-foot minimum. Is the applicant here? Mr. Johnson? Again, if you could give the stenographer your name and we will swear you in.
Sir, if you'll raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your name, please.
Rogers Johnson, Jr.
Thank you.
And if we have counsel appearing on behalf of protestant, could you get on the record, please?
For the record, Nicholas Camelia. I'm representing Heidi Mertz, who lives at 342 Conestoga Road, which is the property immediately adjacent to Mr. Johnson's property.
Thank you.
And we're asking for party status.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, before we start, there's an issue that we have to discuss regarding the sufficiency and accuracy of the advertising here. Okay, we as a matter of law, zoning matters of this type need to be advertised, and the township has advertised. And the township advertised utilizing the language that you included in your application, okay? The problem seems to be that the measurements which you included in your application differ from the measurements that appear on your plan. All right? Am I telling you something that is news to you right now? or-
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a copy of your plan with you?
My contractor is here. He would
You
have-
bring
he
him
would
up.
have that.
Bring him up. Because you may be asked to say a couple things, we probably should identify you and swear you in.
My name is Chris Vogel. I'm the construction manager for SRA Home Products, who was the
I'm sorry,
contractor.
Excuse me, slow down. Construction manager for,
SRA Home Products.
Okay. And Mr. Nogo, I'm going to ask you to take an oath, please. Raise your right hand.
solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your name one more time for the record.
Chris, C-H-R-I-S, Nogle, N-O-G-L-E.
Okay. Now, what I'll be referring to is a plot and grading plan dated September 8th, 2017, prepared by HCES engineers and surveyors. Okay. So the issue that was called our attention is that there are several disparities, for want of a better word, between the measurements that are showing on the plan and the application. Again, the application having been replicated for purposes of advertising. For example, reference is okay, if you have, it looks like you have a copy of the application there. Is that, okay. All right, so the last sentence, for example, the eastern side yard will be reduced from 26 to 15 feet. And I guess it appears here on the plan, for example, that the eastern side yard is 23 and a half feet. See, okay? I'm going to cover a couple of these. You indicate that it indicates that you're decreasing the side yard from 26 feet to 15 feet. But again, if I look at the plan, the shorter of the two distances is 12.7 feet as opposed to 15 feet. Okay. The aggregate side yard, there is reference, let's see what the other reference here is. Indicating there'd be an aggregate side yard of 36 feet, but again, if you add up the two dimensions, it's 34 feet. And then finally, it indicates that the minimum side yard should be 20. Actually, it should be 23.6. So there are at least 4 different indications, places where there are multiple discrepancies on the measurements. And my concern, both for the board and for the applicant, is that this leaves the advertising of your appeal subject to attack if there are people who are opposed to it, which we already know there is somebody opposed to it. So I think the appropriate way, or the way I would suggest we proceed, is to continue this. And it needs to be re-advertised
With the correct dimensions.
with the correct dimensions.
I concur, I agree
And then
with
it
that.
brings us back, we're not, I'm going to pause for a second and get input from the other board members. But I think that we should continue the matter with your consent, have it re-advertised. Could the advertising be done in a fashion that we're timely for the February meeting?
We should be able to make the advertisement requirements for February, yes.
Okay. I'll ask the board if anybody disagrees or wants to.
When is the February meeting?
Third Thursday of the month, which is,
16th.
The 16th of February, I will be out of town between the 16th and the 19th.
okay, would you prefer us to push it to the March meeting?
Well, I can't change my out of town
Well,
plans.
while it's probably good practice for you to be here, it's not absolutely necessary, but not having counsel, that's a problem.
And we need a power of attorney if you weren't here.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm sensing is you don't want to proceed if you can't be here, okay? Okay.
That's probably.
All right, so
wise.
I would suggest we continue it to the March meeting, which is the third Thursday of March, so 15th, okay? While we would probably do this in any event, I'm asking you to go on the record to say you consent to a continuance today to the March Radnor zoning hearing board meeting,
I consent.
okay? John, is there anything else we need to?
Would you also consent to, this is just, when we have a continuance, we ask the applicant to consent to the starting of hearings to the continued date, and then 45 days after the hearings close, after they start, to, whatever date they close, to issue a decision. This is to, make sure that we're square on the various timelines we have to make under the municipality's planning code.
Okay, I didn't quite.
I'll try to do that in another version. There's a requirement that we have any written decisions issued within 45 days of a certain point.
Right,
Absent your consent, you could argue that 45 days should have been tonight.
right.
But obviously, we're not going to have a decision in 45 days, because we're not even going to hear it for about 60 days.
Okay,
So we want you to acknowledge that that 45-day window will not start until that March meeting.
It's actually the hearing, and then the 45 days after the closure of hearings for the decision. So the 45 days runs from the date that we continue the case to, plus any hearings that, I don't see this involving more than one night of hearings, but it would.
You likely will get a decision in March. And then.
Okay.
And then the paperwork follows within the otherwise dictated 45-day period.
okay.
All right.
I consent.
Counsel for the protestant, any input here? Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion to continue?
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, if I could get the revised application by February 15th, that would be the submittal date for the March hearing, which would then follow in with the advertisement for the rest of the applications for March.
Mr. Chairman, I move that a continuance be granted in appeal number 3008 until the March 15, 2018 meeting of the Zoning Hearing Board as discussed here.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, 4-0. We'll see you back here in March, and let's get all our dimensions straight. Thank you. Next matter is Appeal 3009. The applicant, Besco Company, care of Equity Realty Brokers, property located at 368-381 West Lancaster Avenue, also known as 371B West Lancaster Avenue, and Zone PB, contends that the proposed use is permitted pursuant to Section 280-59A1 and/or 280-59A2 In the alternative, applicant seeks a variance from Section 289-59A and/or Section 289B to allow the proposed use at the property. And we have counsel?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Donald Petrosa. I'm an attorney in media, 109 Chesley Drive, Media, PA, representing the applicant, Besco Company.
And before we get rolling here, do we have, Mr. Solicitor, whatever we need here in terms of authority from the applicant?
I do have the managing partner. Besco is a Pennsylvania partnership, and I have the managing partner here. Laird Bevitz is here personally.
Yeah, that would do it.
Want him to come up, please? Sure. He's not going to testify, other than to acknowledge.
All I'm going to do is put him on the record to confirm that you're representing the property owner.
Yes, sir.
And sir, if you'll raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your full name, please.
Laird, L-A-I-R-D, Bevitz, B-E-V-I-T-Z.
And Mr. Bevitz, you are, did I hear general partner of the property owner?
Yes, I am also the managing partner. I represent all the partners.
And council's authorized to represent the property owner?
Yes, he is.
You can have a seat if you want.
Thank you.
There you go. Good evening, members of the board. This application on behalf of Besco Company involves the Stratford Shopping Center. I'm sure you're all familiar with where it is. It's just east of the Farmers Market on West Lancaster Avenue. And the center has some vacancies right now and proposes to locate a Pilates studio, Pilates and fitness studio with a retail component in unit number 12, which is one of the vacancies. Unit number 12, as you'll see, faces Lancaster Avenue. If you're familiar with the center, there are some stores that face Lancaster Avenue and some face the Farmers Market. The Unit 12 is 1,796 square feet in size, so it's a pretty small unit. The shopping center property is roughly 2.5 acres, and it's in the PB, or Planned Business Zoning District. The proposed tenant is Plank Studio, which currently operates on the second floor of the Cody Lighting Building across the street from Bertucci's, also in Wayne. That's at 532 West Lancaster Avenue. And Plank Studio is a Pilates studio with retail sales of related products. They sell apparel, fitness apparel, and some juices and water and that sort of thing. In the PB district, a planned neighborhood or community shopping center, including various specified uses as part of an integrated retail business development, is permitted by right. And these uses include retail store and studio. Those are two of many uses that are permitted in this sort of a shopping center. And it's our position that the proposed studio, the Plank Studio, is a studio permitted by right with a retail component also permitted by right. The issue arises because one of the other uses that is specified in the PB district is indoor place of amusement or recreation, including theater or bowling alley. So it's indoor place of amusement or recreation, including theater or bowling alley. And however, that use is only permitted in the PB district it actually says on a district that is larger than 28, that is at least 20 acres in size. Since we're 2.5 acres, we don't have the 20 acres that would be required. It was the zoning officer's position that any type of fitness or center and so forth, he is considered a indoor place of amusement or recreation. Frankly, to me, what they do at these fitness centers doesn't seem like fitness or doesn't seem like recreation or amusement. But that was the conclusion, and we took a different position. And he basically said, because you don't have 20 acres, you have to come to the zoning hearing board and seek a variance. And we filed an appeal requesting an interpretation that the uses are permitted, and in the alternative, we requested the variance. Frankly, I think our position on the interpretation or determination is probably a stronger legal position. With me this evening are Laird Bevitz, who you met a minute ago, the managing partner of BESCO, Ken McAvoy of Equity Retail Brokers, and I'll hand up personnel lists with these names for you. They were indicated, I think, in the application as well. Ken is with Equity Retail Brokers, and he is the leasing agent and the manager of the center. So he's going to talk a little bit about the center. And also Hillary Ryan, who is the operator of Plank Studio, the proposed tenant. Her company is actually called HER, capital letters, Plank LLC, and she's the manager of the LLC. But I'll refer to it as Plank Studio for our purposes. What I'd like to do, with the board's permission, is to call Hillary Ryan first to testify about the details of the proposed use and explain exactly what the use is. And then I would call Ken McAvoy as the applicant's representative to testify a little bit about the shopping center and the proposed use and why he thinks it's an appropriate use.
Please proceed.
Thank you.
I may have missed it. How many square feet does this unit have?
It is 1,796. So
Okay.
for round numbers, I'm just saying 1,800 square feet. It's a little less than 1,800 square feet. So with that, I would call Hillary Ryan.
And if you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your full name again?
Hillary with 1L Ryan.
Thank you.
Proceed. Hillary, what is your business address?
We are located at 532 West Lancaster on the second floor.
And do you currently operate a business known as Plank Studio at
Yes.
that location?
Yes.
And what is Plank Studio?
Plank is a boutique fitness studio. We operate machines called the Mega Former, which is the new generation of Pilates.
Okay. And is it fair to say that your current location is about 0.3 of a mile away from the proposed location?
Yes.
And are you interested in moving your business to the Stratford Shopping Center and specifically to unit number 12 in the Stratford Shopping Center?
Yes.
Would you please describe your business in a little more detail, give the board an idea of what you do? And I mentioned you sell some retail products. Describe those as well.
So we operate group classes 7 days a week. They are Mega Former classes, which is the piece of equipment that we use. They are built off of what Joseph Pilates originally idea of Pilates was. This is sort of the next generation of Pilates. We were the first in the state of Pennsylvania, and we will have been in our current location 4 years in April. So in addition to small 10-person group classes, we offer private one-on-one duet lessons as well. And then we also sell organic cold-pressed juice and a multitude of workout clothing, none of which is available within 10 miles of our location.
Okay. Now, could you tell the board a little bit about your training? Did you have training first in Pilates, and what did that consist of? And then after that, in the use of the Megaform or this particular plank type of Pilates?
So I am classically certified. I was certified in New York. That training is about 500 hours of in-class education, followed by 500 hours of observation, and then 500 hours of practice teaching for classical Pilates on mat and a traditional reformer. Then when I opened the studio in Pennsylvania, the Megaformer studio, which is slightly different than a traditional reformer, we had a master come out from California. They educated our instructors and myself for 5 days from about 9 to 4 on how to safely execute the exercise, how to educate clients, and that was about it.
Okay. And you mentioned the Megaformer. That's a fairly large piece of equipment that's used?
Yes, so each machine is 250 pounds, 10 feet long. It's a core-focused exercise. Focuses, in addition to the core, a lot on mobility, flexibility, balance. We educate clients from 18 to about 80 at this point in years of age. And we have 11 machines. One is currently in a private room, but in the new proposed space, we would add it to our group classes.
Now, how many people are in a typical class?
A full class is 10 people.
Right. Now, in addition to the 10 people in the class, I assume there's an instructor?
Yes, so 12 people on premises, we like to say, at all times, if we were to sell out the class. Now, sometimes every class doesn't sell out, much to my dismay, but it would be 10 people, 10 clients, one instructor, and then typically I'm on site for every class.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're open 7 days a week. Can you give, and I know your hours vary, but can you give the board some idea of the typical hours of operation?
Yes, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we open first classes at 6 a.m. Each class is 50 minutes. And we are open till about 10:30, 11:30 generally. Tuesday, Thursday,
That's AM?
AM, yes.
Okay.
Tuesday, Thursday, we're open about 8:30 to 11:30. And then in the evenings, Monday nights, we are open 6 to 8. Tuesday, Wednesday, we open up about 4:30. First class starts at 5, and we're closed by 7. So we're really closed for the majority of the day. Most of our classes take place before other businesses even open. On the weekends, it's 8 and 9 and 10 a.m.
Now, in addition to the classes that you have described, do you provide services? You mentioned some private clients as well. Can you give the board an example of the types of, what that service might entail?
So a private megaformer class, all megaformer classes are 50 minutes, a private is as well. All of those classes are scheduled directly through myself. For clients maybe that are, some are elderly and they want the mobility in practice. Other are professional athletes that would like to be in the space alone at that time. We've been training the Villanova men's basketball team. They'll come in, rent the room for the hour, have it set up the way they like. So in addition to those group classes, there may be here or there a moment where at noon I am open for an hour.
Is there anything that you would like to add that I didn't ask you?
No, I mean, I think, right now, the only reason that we are looking to move locations is because I operate in over 6,000 square feet at the moment above Cody Lighting, and I bit off a little more than I could chew as a small business owner, so I'm looking to downsize.
Any questions of this witness from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness is Ken McAvoy. And I apologize, I meant to hand up these little exhibit packets, which have a personnel list I mentioned and other copies of the exhibits in case you don't have any. Here's a bunch of them passed around. I'll a couple of them here too. Personnel list, exhibit list, and copies of the exhibits.
Counsel, do you know if the current location of Plank had to get a variance to be there?
Did not, and I think the reason is that is in the, no, it did not. It is in the C2 district, and an indoor place of amusement is permitted in the C2 district.
But I'm noting that the definition of that is different than what we have in the C1 district.
I'm sorry, sir?
The definition. It's more expansive. It says indoor place of amusement or recreation, including theater or bowling alley, health spa, racket sports club, pool room, billiard room, and amusement arcade. So to me, it's not the same thing as C1. So I'm seeing some, I'm not even sure if it's in that category, to be perfectly blunt.
But in the PB district, it only mentions the bowling alley.
I know, and
Okay,
that's a
you're
big
saying
distinction. That is,
same
in my
thing.
mind, that's a big distinction.
But I'm not quite sure, and I'll address this at the end of the case
Okay.
if I may, but I'm not quite sure what it means to say including, does it mean exclusively those, or including but not limited to? That's an issue that we can talk about at the end of the case, I think. But I understand your point, and I had the same question. I think in C2 it is actually where it has some more expansive language than it does in the PB under indoor place.
Proceed with your witness.
Board, if I could expand upon that, the previous, the current location was subject to zoning hearing board. I had issued a zoning determination for this use and did classify it as indoor recreation. For the Cody building, there was issues with parking. Back in 2013, they had submitted a zoning hearing board request before this board, one appealing the determination that use was indoor recreation. Subsequently, they withdrew that request and only went for a variance for parking for the indoor recreation use, which was granted with conditions.
Yes, I discussed that with Kevin a little bit. I was aware, the only thing I saw, and he sent me a copy of a letter related to the parking issue. So that's why I responded to you that they didn't have to get a variance for the use. And they didn't need a variance for the use because under either interpretation, it would have been permitted in that district.
Yeah, I guess again, I'm just wondering, Kevin, if you were looking at it as a part of that first part of the phrase, or if you were saying, well, I think the Plank Studio is falling under the health spa inclusion.
Indoor recreation is what we had.
Gentlemen, can we, this is a very relevant conversation, but let's see if we can get through the fact witnesses and then get back to that point.
Thank you, sir. Has he been sworn? I'm sorry.
No, he hasn't. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your full name, and you're going to have to speak nice and loudly, please,
Ken McAvoy,
and spell.
MCEVOY.
Thank you.
Mr. McAvoy, what is your business address, sir?
531 West Germantown Pike, Suite 103, Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, 19462.
And what is your employment?
I am a partner of the firm.
I'm sorry.
Partner of the firm.
Please move, either move closer to the mic or use the
Is that mic
handheld.
on?
Can-
Yes?
You're a partner in Equity Retail Brokers. Is that
Correct.
Okay. And what is the business of Equity Retail Brokers?
We're a commercial real estate firm that specializes in retail. 98% of our business is retail.
Can you please describe for the board your commercial real estate experience, particularly as it relates to leasing and management of shopping centers and commercial properties?
I've been employed as a licensed real estate agent for approximately 14 years, and I handle asset management for a number of shopping centers, as well as, I would guess I've done over 100 leases in the 14 years, and I've sold shopping centers and represented clients to find new sites.
Are you a member of any professional organizations related to commercial real estate?
ICSC is the International Council of Shopping Centers. RBN is the Retail Brokers Network, which is 60 firms across the country, and CMRE, Capital Markets Real Estate. I'm a co-founder of that, which is a Philadelphia-based network.
Now, do your duties at Equity Retail Brokers involve leasing and management of the Stratford Shopping Center?
Yes,
And as we indicated, the Stratford Shopping Center is owned by the Besco Company?
correct.
All right. Now, we have copies of the exhibits that I've handed up to the board. And you copy, you can identify Exhibit A1 in the packet as you provided me with a copy of the deed for the property on which the shopping center is located. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I think what we better do with these next couple of exhibits, I'll put up here.
Thank you.
Now, directing your attention to Exhibit A2, which appears to be an aerial photo of the area with the names of various neighboring businesses superimposed. Does that exhibit show the location of the Stratford Shopping Center as well as various nearby commercial businesses and offices?
Correct. Stratford Shopping Center is located here. That's the site.
Okay. And does A2 also show Bertucci's to the west?
Correct.
Okay. And the current Plank Studio would be in the Cody building across from Bertucci's?
Correct.
All right. Now, I'm going to put on the screen Exhibit A3 for purposes of identification. Now, what does Exhibit A3 show?
It is a copy of our leasing exhibit, which shows a shopping center with the layout of Stratford Shopping Center and the individual tenant spaces. Also names each tenant space and the physical size of the spaces.
Okay. So on the right, we have 3 different photographs of the shopping center. You have a photograph of the freestanding sign to the left, middle of the exhibit. And as you indicated, if you look closely at it, there are the names of tenants and the square footage of their units. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then there's a small site plan up in the upper left-hand corner?
Correct.
All right. So that units 1 through 4 face west towards the farmer's market, and units 5 through 15 face south towards Lancaster Avenue. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, does Exhibit A3 show units 8 and 12 as being vacant with 8 colored in red and 12 colored in blue?
Yes.
So the subject of this application is the blue unit shown on the site plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's unit number 12. And would unit number 12, that storefront, be located between Music and Arts and Seasons Pizza?
Correct.
And what is the square footage of unit number 12? I indicated it, but we should have it in your testimony.
1,796 square feet.
And what is the approximate land area of the shopping center?
Approximately 2.5 acres.
And you're aware that the center is in the PB district, are you not?
Correct.
We've been using 368-381 West Lancaster Avenue for the shopping center as a whole because the individual tenants do have individual addresses. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we believe that the unit number 12 will have an address of 371B because it's just to the right of 371A?
Yes, the space was subdivided.
Okay. Can you, just in your own words, describe for the board how difficult or how hard it is to find tenants with a traditional retail store type of use, meaning one where the ultimate customer comes in and purchases merchandise for a small shopping center such as this subject shopping center?
As we all know, the conditions of retail has changed in that the introduction of the internet and online purchasing has created a situation where not as many retail stores are required. So shopping centers such as Stratford have found themselves in a situation where you have more of a service-oriented tenant mix. So there's been an addition of medical, training, physical fitness, your non-traditional retail uses of 15 years ago that were restaurants and apparel and appliances, things that you would think of your typical retail. Our situations now are many of our retail leases are subject to restaurants and fitness. Have seemed to be the majority of the deals that are done in the last 24 months.
If I can interrupt you, how long have the 2 currently vacant sites been vacant?
The site in question, unit number 12, was originally Candy's Hallmark, closed approximately 2 years ago. We were able to lease half of the space. The space was 4,000 square feet, which has become a challenging size, that there's not many retail tenants that are fit 4,000 square feet. We split it up into 2 uses because we were able to acquire music and arts as one tenant, take 2,204 square feet. The second site in the red, that was 360 tanning salons, like many other uses, have deteriorated, and that tenant moved out in November, I believe.
Thank you.
Now, Section 280-59A1 of the zoning ordinance allows a retail store, and Section 280-59A2 allows a studio in the PB district. Do you consider the Plank Studio to be a retail use and/or studio?
I do because of the nature of the business where there is a little bit of retail sales as well as the studio atmosphere of the fitness. It's not a large fitness facility.
Is a small fitness, small boutique fitness studio such as the one proposed commonly found in small shopping centers these days?
Yes.
Can you think of any reason why an 1,800 square foot fitness studio would need to be on a 20-acre parcel from a real estate point of view?
Not from a real estate point of view.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add? No? Okay.
Could you give us I see that A4 is a parking survey. Give us a quick summary of your familiarity with parking use there and whether it's at capacity, not at capacity, et cetera.
This is Exhibit A4. That has the total parking count on it. It does show the total number of spaces available. Number of spaces on the subject premises is 175 spaces.
I'm sorry, Don, I can't hear
I'm
you.
sorry, 175 spaces, I think, plus 4 handicap spaces, is I believe what the note says.
And my relatively simple question is, if I drove in there Saturday at 11 o'clock, would I find parking?
You would find parking.
You have plenty of parking.
Correct. There were a few restaurants in the past that have moved out, and there's plenty of parking at this shopping center.
Any other any questions of the board members of this witness? Thank you. Do you have any other witnesses?
I have no other witnesses, sir.
Before we proceed, is there anybody else in the audience who wants to be heard on this particular application? Seeing none?
I have a question for the owner.
A member of the board has a question for the owner.
Ms. Ryan, if you wouldn't mind. I just want to make sure that I think I heard the testimony correctly. In terms of what is done at this facility, is an instructor and there's students.
Correct.
And you're giving them, you're like personalized training in a way. Is how I kind of characterize it.
Yes, so it is a 10-person group class, and we feel that one instructor is enough to control 10 people on the machine.
But do they just come in and use the machines without
No.
being in a class? Okay, so it's always an instructional class. I would say it's even, in a way, personalized for whatever skill level, or do you also have individual training
Yes.
sessions?
So in the group class setting, advanced registration is required. We have an online booking tool. And in class, all classes are the same level. So our
Okay.
instructors are able to give an advanced option or make a modification depending on the client.
But it's always your instructor is telling them what to do?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make a distinction that it's not a gym. No, where you
Correct.
just come and
I-
use
I had
machines.
thought, when I sat down, I did want to make clear, like, we are not a CrossFit, we are not an LA Fitness. The concept is boutique fitness studio, and that's what this idea is.
I like the term personal, and I think you may like it
Personal.
when
Yes.
when I say it
I
that way.
agree.
In other words, the clients are supervised. There's somebody there who's sort of, the major domo behind the activity, and making sure that they, get the workout or the training, but the staff person is trained, and if something goes wrong, a trained staff, heaven forbid, a trained staff person is there.
Yes, in addition to myself, all of the instructors are CPR, AED certified instructors, in addition to having a license to teach this exercise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Counsel, do you want to summarize, wrap up?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Morton. Basically, a retail store, a studio, and an indoor place of amusement or recreation including theater or bowling alley, are all undefined terms in the zoning ordinance. There's no definition for any of those terms in the ordinance. Ordinances, as the board knows, I really don't have to tell you, but I will if you'll bear with me for a second. Ordinances are to be construed expansively, affording the landowner the broadest possible use and enjoyment of its land. Undefined terms in a zoning ordinance regarding the permitted use of a property are given their plain meaning, and any doubt is resolved in favor of the landowner and the least restrictive use of the land. This is both case law and 603.1 of the MPC, but it's clearly set forth in various cases. I think that it's our position that the Plank Studio is just that. Plain language is a studio. We didn't name it that in order to come here to argue that it's a studio. That is the name of the operation. It is a studio. It has a retail component, and we believe it's a combination of a retail store and a studio, in this case a fitness studio. It clearly, when the ordinance, the issue we were discussing earlier, I'm not quite sure what it means when it says just including, but it says including a bowling alley or a theater. I mean, these are obviously large types of places of amusement. They're not a boutique fitness center that we're talking about here. And an 1,800 square foot studio with a retail component, it is not like a theater or a bowling alley or some other large, or even like a Planet Fitness or some large gym like that. There are fitness operations all around the property. I think there's one across the street. There's one 3/10 of a mile, the subject one right now. And we think there are different interpretations that can be made, but we think that the correct interpretation, the more reasonable interpretation, is that the use this use, as described by the applicant, is a form of permitted use. That's not to say that any kind of a gym use would comply, but we think that this one does.
Thank you. Any questions of council? Okay, thank you. I remember,
I didn't push my button.
I'm sorry.
You got to be quick. That's it, you won't.
Brad made the point about this is not the only topic on which there are alternate constructions for language in our zoning code. But this is one. And, you are relying on the notion of a studio, and I'm not even sure. I mean, I know a couple different kinds of studios, but unfortunately, the code doesn't share with us what type of studio the board was intending when they adopted the ordinance. What of the more expansive description of places of amusement that were included? I think it's C2, right? Yeah. The area I'm focusing specifically on is, I believe it's a health spa, and that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I'd be interested to hear how you would differentiate that broader description of uses and the description that we're talking about now for the particular use here.
I'm not quite sure why the ordinance made that distinction, and I'm not being critical. I know it because I've tried to do it. It's very, very difficult to write an ordinance. It's a lot easier to criticize an ordinance than it is to write one. But I see this as a retail use. I mean, I could almost fit it into a retail store. It sort of depends on how you define retail. A lot of ordinances talk about, I've seen definitions of retail store that talk about goods or services that are provided to the ultimate consumer. That's what makes it retail. So I think this is a perfect fit for a retail use. What they had in mind, certainly the gymnasium, I'm assuming that the drafters may have been thinking of a Planet Fitness or some very large type of, it's more like a theater, a bowling alley, a large fitness center. But this really is a boutique-y type of thing. Now, health spa, I'm not sure what that could be. I mean, I've seen some things that are health spas, and some of them have racquetball clubs and all kinds of other things in there. But I don't know what the drafters, because they didn't define any of the terms. So I think there is ambiguity.
Thanks.
Any other questions of council? All right, seeing none, open to either comment, discussion from the board.
Yeah, I'll start. To me, once again, we're hitting a portion of the code that is vague. It could be written a hell of a lot better. And as I'm comparing the uses in C1, C2, and even in the PB alternative uses, they're using the same words but in different ways. So to me, I'm not even thinking about this as a studio. What I am saying is I think in C1 you have the right to have something called a personal service shop, and such as a barber shop, a beautician, clothes cleaning, pickup agency. And to me, because of the nature of this facility, it's a personal service shop. I mean, people are coming in and getting personalized services. So to me, I don't think it fits into the indoor recreation and amusement, especially because of the clarifications in C2 that really it looks like this is something. I think they put health spa in there to fix a problem, not necessarily to make it sound like it's a definition. I think they were fixing something, because it is odd that you would be able to have something similar to a health spa, which I think is a personal service shop in C1, but yet not have it in C2. And I think they fixed that by the amendment, by adding on those number of words. So for me, personally, when I look at the different uses, I don't, because of the definition that's in C2, I'm not seeing this as a place of recreation or amusement. I think that's fitting for like a theater, bowling, racket club, pool room, amusement arcades. I mean, those are things that are, you're doing something fun, you know. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going into exercise. And so for me,
there is something to be said for personal enrichment, Brad.
There it is. I agree with that. But let's just say you're going into plank, similar to you go to the nail salon that is 2 doors down. You're trying to fix your body. You're trying to make it better, and you're doing it in a personalized way. You're relying on someone else to teach you how to do it. I think if this was a gym, I would not characterize that at all, because I think you're going in there to just use someone else's equipment. You're not getting personalized service, or at least that's not the main crux of it. So for me, I think they get it by right under C1 that it's a personal service shop.
Thoughts from the other board members?
Sorry, Brad, could you explain that last observation? You're analogizing from C1 to say that in PB.
Well, they're allowed by right to do what's in C1, and in C1 is a personal service shop.
Got it.
Yep.
Thanks. I completely agree with Brad, by the way.
I have nothing to add. I agree with Brad.
I think, given the challenges associated with more conventional retail, we do the township a service by trying to be flexible with these interpretations. I'm open to a motion.
I make a motion that there's no variance needed, that the applicant has it by right. Under section C1, I mean, under, I don't even know how we raise it. Do they have it by right?
Yeah, we just permitted a right.
Okay.
Do we need to specify the category of use?
No, we don't. In fact, we also, if you don't, want to have less specificity, you could just approve it.
I like saying by right, but it's me.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just again remind you that this was the subject of a previous zoning hearing board decision, specifically relating to parking for this use. It was in the C2 district at that point in time. Again, my interpretation that was ultimately rescinded in terms of they didn't appeal that it was an indoor recreation use. So just from my standpoint, being consistent, which is why I told Mr. Petroza that this was something that was an indoor recreation use, being consistent with this specific use right across the street.
And I appreciate that. I think that being said, it's tentatively the determination of the board, per the evidence that was presented at this evening's hearing, that it's personal services, which is a permitted use. Given that, please restate again what the motion is.
Let me make it clarity, because I'm sure you know, the C2 does not have the personal shop in their clause. So I could see why this would be the only one that you could really rely on. But I think that's a big distinction, the fact that it is in C2. But again, the motion is that it's granted by right.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Good luck with the transfer of your business. Final item for the evening, appeal number 3010. Pursuant to the request of the Township and neighbors, the applicant Villanova University, property located at 800 East Lancaster Avenue, Pike Field and zoned PI, seeks a variance from the 6-foot height requirement of Section 280-109 of the zoning code to install on Pike Field a temporary 8-foot high fence around the temporary parking and material laid-down area for the construction of the Performing Arts Center. In the alternative, applicant seeks any necessary relief as may be required. Member Hammack has asked to be recognized by putting his coat on.
All right, and I'll be recusing myself from this appeal.
Thank you very much.
It doesn't feel like a Villanova matter, because there's no one here. It doesn't make sense.
What university is this?
I know. Nick Cornelia, representing Villanova University. Just to give you a brief rundown on this, remember, this is all part of the CICD, the ordinance that was granted by the township. It was approved. Villanova went through land development approval, which was granted, and part of that land development approval was for a performing arts center to be located in front of the current parking structure at the corner of Ithan and Lancaster, right across from Jake Nevin Fieldhouse. In addition, we obviously need a laydown area for vehicles and equipment, and that laydown area would be temporarily placed on Pike Field. When it's done, when the building is constructed, that laydown area would be brought up again. It would be turned into field again. Pike Field would exist. The proposal here, as requested by the township and the neighbors, was that instead of a 6-foot fence, that an 8-foot fence be installed around this temporary laydown area. And once again, when the construction is completed, that fence would also be removed. So anything here tonight is of a temporary nature. It's not permanent. Both the laydown area itself, as well as any fencing and any equipment, will be removed, and the field will be restored to its current condition as a playing field. Chris?
Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your full name, please.
Christopher Kowalski, Kovolski.
And Chris, you heard my brief opening here regarding the Performing Arts Center as well as the laydown area. Was that accurate, the way I represented that?
Yes, with one change. The fence that we're proposing to be 8 feet is on 2 sides of the temporary laydown area, the eastern side and the southern side. There is existing fence on the property on the north side and the west side that will remain its current height, but will be shrouded to help obscure seeing through.
And its current height complies with the township ordinance?
Correct.
6 feet. And Villanova owns that property that we're talking about?
It does.
I marked here as A2, and that's a copy of the deed for
It
the
is.
property. I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3. And I
guess if you can too, describe what A2 represents, and I'll give you a pointer, and you can use that pointer to describe where the PAC will be located and where the temporary laydown area is located as well.
Sure.
And this is actually, obviously, an older picture. This is not a current picture, you know, because
Correct.
it shows the old parking lots.
So this shows a portion of the university's campus. Right here is the main intersection of Ithan and Lancaster Avenues. This is South Ithan Avenue right here. This area is what used to be known as Pike Lot or East Main Lot. On this section right now exists a new parking structure. And in this front portion, it has been paved temporarily for contractor parking. This is where the Performing Arts Center will be located. The laydown and temporary parking area will be right here on Pike Field. It will follow, it will be near the edge of the softball field. The softball field will remain. We'll proceed out here and come up here, avoiding the new stormwater management system that we installed as part of a previous project, and come up here and be fenced.
I'm showing you what's been marked as A4. And if you can describe where it is and show where the fencing would actually take place.
Okay, so once again, this is Lancaster Avenue up here, running east, west. Up here, off of this, would be the Villanova Stadium. Here is an outline of the temporary laydown and parking area. Over here is the Performing Arts Center building site, what is now used as contractor parking. Here is
A4, A5.
A4. A5 are photos.
Okay, I got, my application had an A5 on that.
On this one? I think they're the photos. Does it have arrows on it, John?
No, they're, this is it. Or is that,
Yeah, that's
oh, that's the photos, okay. It's, oh, second page, fair enough.
This figure illustrates the temporary fence that we would put in here on the eastern side and the southern side. On the,
I'm sorry, the eastern side, this is the side, further to the east are residential neighbors, is that correct?
correct, shown here is our property line, and beyond our property line are the backyards of homes on Barley Cone Lane.
Okay, and on the southern side, we're divided by the, well, you have the softball field. Okay.
Yeah, we have the softball field, and then further down off the page is SEPTA Norristown high-speed line tracks. And then on the other side of that is our south campus.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So the red line with the X's represents where the new temporary fencing is, where we propose it to be 8 feet. This thick red line represents the 60-foot setback of this side of the temporary laydown area. This black line up top and on the western side represents existing fencing that we will maintain and shroud.
I'm showing you A5, and if you can just describe what A5 is, and I know it's a number of pictures, and you
Sure.
have it divided into...
A5 is the same figure as A4, except it has directional arrows indicating the 8 pictures that follow, the views from those pictures.
Chris, I think I know the answer, but just help me with this. On A4, where will the Performing Arts Center be?
Right over here, where these parking spaces are indicating right now.
Thank you.
Correct. Yep.
So the laydown area is immediately adjacent to the Performing Arts Center.
Correct.
Showing you A5?
Yes. And again, same illustration as A4, except I went out in the middle of the field and took pictures, and the arrows indicate the direction of those views.
Okay, so one is looking, took a picture going east, correct?
So this is looking toward the backyards of the homes on Barley Cone Lane.
And then 2 is, I guess, is southeast, right?
Correct. Again, Barley Cone Lane, and then I believe it might be Buckingham that comes in at the end down there, but at the corner of our property.
And then 3 would be looking straight south toward the
P&W tracks.
Yes,
and
through the softball field, you can see the fence line there, which will stay, and then beyond the softball field is a Norristown high-speed line.
And then 4 would be looking southwest.
Yep, new parking structure. And you can see the existing fence line on this photo. Right here, it's also above grade from that temporary laydown and parking area. So the reason why we're not looking to increase the height of that fence or the fence on the north side, which we'll see in a picture coming up, is that it's already above where we're going to be fencing.
It's already elevated by a berm or whatever.
Correct, a change in grade.
And then going 6, which is northwest.
This is picture number 5. I believe this is straight west.
Okay. And then 6 is northwest?
Correct. And you see here toward the intersection of Ithan and Lancaster Avenues, this building here is Jake Nevin Fieldhouse, and there is a fence here that's also elevated by the grade.
And then 7 will be straight north.
Looking at Villanova Stadium.
And is there there is a fence there?
Correct. Yep, and that is separating the field from the sidewalk and Route 30.
And then you see the elevation up to Route 30.
Yes, correct, right here.
And then 8 would be looking northeast.
Correct. Yeah, at the corner of our property on Lancaster Avenue.
And as we had mentioned during this, you had several meetings with neighbors in Township.
Yeah,
we had called CARE, I guess, the CARE committee.
We had 2 specific meetings about this project, identified a number of issues, some of which are captured in the developer's agreement that we've talked about. This was requested by the residents in the township, and we agreed not only to do it, but also to come before the zoning hearing board to seek relief in order to do it at our own expense.
That's all I have. But ask, part of the record.
What's the proposed timeframe when, if relief is received, when do you anticipate installing the fence? And when we talk about temporary, what would be the timeline for temporary?
We propose installing the fence as soon as possible. We're in the final stages awaiting grading permit from the township. Once we have that, we look to move forward as soon as possible. Our contractors are ready to go. And we have a 2-year construction timeline planned for this project.
And that area will be used the entirety of that 2-year period?
Correct. One of the concerns that the residents had raised was it could be used for commencement parking for special events, and there will be none of that. This will be locked when it's not in use by contractors and only used for contractors and materials laid down.
The relief, which, again, are you seeking relief tied to an event, that being the completion of construction, or with a date certain, and are you proposing a date certain?
Yeah, I would say it'd be a completion of construction, just, we don't know what contingencies could happen. And also, construction could be quicker than 2 years. Mm-hmm. So that's why I would request that instead of a date certain, that we do at the end of construction.
Mr. Chairman, one other possibility is to say upon completion of this construction, but in all events on or before such and such a date.
I mean, my sense is that the applicant is going to want to regain the use of this area as promptly as it can.
That is absolutely
and
correct.
You're doing this because you have to, not because you want to. So I suspect once you feel that you no longer need the lot for the purpose that you're using it, the fence will come down and you will restore or commence using it for whatever other permitted purpose that you can.
That is absolutely correct. The neighbors are rarely concerned about the change of use of this area. That pales in comparison to the concerns that have been expressed by our community. That's a high-use field, not only for our purposes, but other special events. So yes, as soon as we're able to turn it back into a playing field to the state that it is right now, we're going to be doing that. And we've committed to that in the developer's agreement as well, that it gets restored to its current state. And there are certain stipulations about how we do that with sod, not seed. So it all goes back to turning it around as quickly as possible.
The application, the phrase used by the application is, will be returned to its current grass field condition. Understanding that you may have entered into other binding commitments, presumably you have no objection to the relief being granted with the condition that upon completion, the field will be returned to its current grass field condition?
Yeah, we're,
No problem.
yeah, we're already committed to that in development agreement, so.
Right. Do other members of the board have any other questions of the applicant or its witnesses?
All the other members.
Turning both ways.
I'm good.
Okay. That being said, I'm sorry.
No, just the exhibits to be part of the record, please.
Okay.
Let's see if anyone else wants to come up here.
For the record, is there anybody else who would like to be heard? Seeing no one, literally. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I did, I made it last time.
This is 3 for me tonight. Mr. Chairman, I move that the applicant be granted the requested relief, subject to the condition that following completion of construction of the Performing Arts Center, the area in question be restored to its current grass field condition.
And to clarify, the relief, it is a temporary variance for the period of construction of the Performing Arts Center.
Yes, I
Okay, fine.
appreciate the modification of the motion.
Second?
Second.
And quick discussion, I don't see a need to fiddle too much with deadlines because I think you're persuasive that there's not a circumstance where they're going to want to drag this out. So in terms of trying to put a not later than date. So there's a motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Relief granted. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.